Rachel Zegler didn't just star in Disney's Snow White. She may have burned the whole fairy tale kingdom down with her attitude, her words, and a controversy that refused to die.
I love her, and her superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Snow White. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry. That was acting. That's what that was. I don't really care what happens with this movie. I really hope her career is pretty much over. I'd be thrilled to see that. I can't imagine. I mean, Christian, you tell me.
From the moment she was cast, the internet lit up. Critics said she didn't fit the role. Fans said she didn't even like the story. And when her own words started making headlines, things spiraled fast. By the time the film dropped, backlash wasn't just expected, it was guaranteed. But here's the twist. This wasn't just a casting mistake. It was a choice backed by one of Hollywood's biggest names. And that decision, it would set the entire project on a course no one saw coming. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's Megyn Kelly calling out now? That would be Disney. And more specifically, Rachel Zegler, the face of its 2025 Snow White remake. Zegler took the lead in a version that felt nothing like the 1937 original. Gal Gadot played the evil queen, and the iconic dwarves, replaced with awkward CGI, which didn't exactly win fans over. Megyn Kelly wasn't subtle. She made it clear the movie missed the mark, but she wasn't just mad at Disney. She had a real problem with how Zegler got the role in the first place.
That is totally uplifting and the right way to be woke, Link, when you actually canceled the roles for the marginalized population because just putting them on screen is somehow racist.
According to Megyn Kelly, Snow White didn't flop because it was too woke or not woke enough. It wasn't about the CGI, the rewritten plot, or even the missing dwarves. She says the real problem was front and center, Rachel Zegler. Critics agreed. Her attitude, her interviews, and the way she talked about the film rubbed people the wrong way before it even came out. But how did someone so mismatched land such a massive role? Turns out this wasn't just a Disney choice. It was a favor from someone powerful.
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do that those executives like Spielberg are looking at that saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.
Megyn Kelly didn't mince words. She says Snow White failed because of Rachel Zegler, plain and simple. On her podcast, she brought in Link Lauren and critic Christian Toto to break it down. But before they even got into the movie, Kelly reminded everyone this wasn't the first time she'd called Zegler out. She slammed Disney for casting her, saying, "This woman is a pig," and claimed the studio would need to remake the entire film. Her point? Disney fired Gina Carano for far less. Back in 2021, Carano was dropped for comparing conservative treatment in the US to Nazi Germany. So what did Zegler say that Kelly thinks is worse? Well, she posted something after the 2024 election that lit up social media, and not in a good way. Because when Trump got reelected, Zegler didn't hold back, and the fallout was immediate. Megyn Kelly wasn't the only one fed up with Rachel Zegler's Trump tweet, but on her March 2025 podcast, she tried to keep things focused. This time, it wasn't about politics. It was about Snow White, and whether Zegler ever belonged in the role at all. Kelly's guests, Link Lauren and Christian Toto, weren't impressed either. But surprisingly, Toto, who had actually seen the film, didn't think it was a total disaster. He said Disney fumbled, sure, but it wasn't the epic failure people made it out to be.
If you're deep into this Hollywood mess like we are, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps more people see just how wild this Snow White story really got.
Still, even he agreed on one thing. The real problem wasn't the story or effects, it was the person front and center.
But one of the reasons why Rachel Zegler sticks around is she's got a beautiful voice and she has some talent. So I think that certainly helps her because she's a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her, but...
Yes, the CGI dwarves were strange. Yes, the story leaned into modern themes that didn't land for everyone. But according to Megyn Kelly and her guests, none of that sank the film. The real issue? Rachel Zegler, and not because of her acting. It was her attitude before the movie even dropped that rubbed people the wrong way. The press tour, the interviews, the social posts, almost everything she did came off like she couldn't stand the project she was supposed to promote. And then came the one comment that sealed it. The moment she called the original story creepy, fans completely turned on her.
Real question. Do you think calling the prince a stalker was out of line or fair game in today's world? Drop your take in the comments because this debate's nowhere near over.
She's talented, she's attractive, she's got skill. But there are a lot of actresses in Hollywood who bring all that to the table and are not going to absolutely sabotage your work.
Megyn Kelly didn't hold back. She accused Rachel Zegler of ruining Snow White by forcing a woke agenda onto a German fairy tale that had stood for nearly a century. And it all started with one clip. Zegler mocked the original story, calling it weird and saying the prince came off like a stalker. Fans were stunned. How do you trash the love story at the heart of the film you're starring in? From that point on, it didn't matter how polished the press interviews were. The damage was done, and her words kept coming back to haunt her.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story. with a guy who literally stalked.
Zegler showed up to every promo event, posed for the cameras, said all the right things about the team and the production. But when it came to Snow White herself, she couldn't hide the disdain. Every time she talked about the story, it felt like she was distancing herself from it. Fans noticed, and so did Disney. But here's the part no one talks about. The studio didn't just pick her for this role. They spent years building the movie around her.
So yeah, no, Rachel Zegler, she needs to be more grateful for the role she had. If I were cast in a Disney movie, I would be saying, I love Disney, I love Snow White. I wouldn't be saying anything negative.
Megyn Kelly couldn't make sense of it. Why cast someone who clearly didn't connect with the role? Looking back, it's obvious. Zegler was never the right fit. But believe it or not, Snow White took nearly 9 years to come together. Development started back in 2016 when Mark Webb signed on to direct, and he wasted no time bringing in writers like Aaron Cressida Wilson and Greta Gerwig to modernize the script. Then came the casting. And here's where it all changed. Steven Spielberg made a call. He just worked with Zegler on West Side Story and personally vouched for her. Webb didn't hesitate, and from that moment on, Disney was locked in, whether she was the right fit or not.
Every young person dreams about a phone call like that. I've been lucky to have a few of those in my life, but this one is certainly extra special as a huge Disney fan.
With Rachel Zegler locked in as the lead, Gal Gadot joined the cast days later as the evil queen. But even before filming began, the backlash hit hard, and it all started with Zegler's appearance. Fans pointed out that Snow White, Disney's very first princess from 1937, looked nothing like Zegler. Online debates exploded. Some said the casting was forced. Others felt the studio was rewriting history to check boxes. And just like with The Little Mermaid, Disney found itself in a cultural firestorm it couldn't control. But this time, the criticism went deeper than skin tone, because soon people started asking a much bigger question. Did Zegler even want to be Snow White?
Still watching? Then you're exactly who this channel's for. Subscribe now. We break down the stories Hollywood doesn't want you talking about.
As the casting debates cooled, a new concern took over. Rachel Zegler's attitude toward the role itself. Her comments from early interviews resurfaced, and they weren't flattering. She called the story outdated, criticized the romance, even questioned why anyone would admire Snow White in the first place. For someone leading the film, she didn't seem interested in defending it. And that's what bothered fans most. Not the casting, but the disconnect. Because if Zegler didn't believe in the character, how could she ever bring her to life? The timeline made it worse. Disney had been developing Snow White since 2016, and by the time the film finally arrived in 2025, the controversy had been brewing for nearly a decade. They stuck with Zegler through it all, despite the comments, the backlash, and the public doubt. In interviews, she started walking things back. Suddenly, she was praising the character she once dismissed, but for many, the damage had already been done. And just when Disney needed her to sell the movie to the world, she gave them a version of Snow White no one could recognize.
Now you have Rachel Zegler saying, oh, that 1937 movie, that's just, oh, it's tacky, it's weird, we're going to change all that. I mean, what a difference.
The movie finally dropped, and Disney had one last job for Rachel Zegler: sell it. On Good Morning America, she smiled for the cameras and praised the film, calling it a modern version with a timeless heart. She said it was about bridging generations and spoke about Snow White's kindness like she'd always believed in it. But fans didn't forget. Just years earlier, she mocked the same story, called it outdated, and said the prince gave off stalker vibes. Megyn Kelly wasn't buying the change. She saw it as damage control, especially with rumors swirling about Zegler's future in Hollywood. Kelly didn't stop there. She brought up reports that Zegler and Gal Gadot clashed on set and pointed out Zegler's controversial Free Palestine post, which many saw as a direct jab considering Gadot's background. Between the bad press, the backlash, and the growing list of burned bridges, Zegler's Disney days might already be over. And for someone who never seemed to love the spotlight, Hollywood might be done watching. Rachel Zegler was supposed to lead a new generation of Disney princesses. Instead, she became the symbol of a remake gone wrong, dragged down by backlash, politics, and a role she never seemed to believe in. Now, with the movie fading fast and her future with Disney uncertain, one thing's clear. In this version of Snow White, the fairy tale never stood a chance. But what do you think? Was Zegler unfairly targeted, or did she sabotage her own shot at stardom? Drop your take in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories Hollywood doesn't want you to hear.